All right, so when I look at the foreign exchange market as a model, it's really just a supply and demand graph. In fact, it's the exact same logic that we'd use for supply and demand. Now, when I teach the foreign exchange market as a graph, I like to put two graphs next to each other. And I like to break it down as the market for both of these products, or for both of the currencies. So over here, because I'm going to England, I'm going to use the market for the pound on the left, and over here, I'm coming from the United States, so I'm going to refer to this as the market for US dollars. Now, from there, the only difference between your typical supply and demand graph is what goes on each of the axes. So, on the Y in your typical supply and demand graph is the price. But in this case, it's not the price of a product, but rather the price of an asset, or in this case, the dollar. So think about it. If I'm going to buy a British pound, I have to know how much it's going to cost for $1 US to the pound, or dollar per pound. So the way I can label this, or the way I need to label this, is I need to label it as the dollar to the pound, the ratio. Now the little trick that I teach, that a lot of people teach, is that when you're looking at these, the quantity is going to be, down here, the quantity is going to be whatever is your denominator, or whatever market you're looking at. So over here is going to be the quantity of pounds. Okay, again, whatever's the bottom here is going to be here, or whatever market we're analyzing. Now over here at the market for US dollars, what I'm going to do is look at it from the perspective of the pound, or the price from the pound to the dollar. Okay, so again, what goes on the denominator goes on my x-axis, and this is the quantity of dollars. From this point on, it's simple supply and demand. All right, so let's set up our graph. First things first, I've got a supply curve, which represents the supply of pounds. Then I have a demand curve, which represents the demand for pounds. Then I have my equilibrium points. I've got a quantity equilibrium. I've got an exchange rate equilibrium, E and Q. Okay, so I'm going to England. I want British pounds. I want to buy British stuff. I want to stay in a hotel. I want to buy their products. I want to go to the Olympics. I demand more British pounds. Well, as you know from previous classes, if we have an increase in demand, that's going to be a shift to the right of the demand curve. Okay, shift to the right. Go from D to D1. Well, now what's going to happen to the price of the British pound as it is relating, or relates to, the US dollar? And of course, this wouldn't just be me, it'd be a lot of people traveling to England for the Olympics. Well, I can see here that I'm going to actually move along my supply curve, and I'm going to see an increase in the price is going to go up, of the British pound. And what that means is the British pound now is getting more expensive relative to the US dollar, because of the same reasons an ice cream cone would get more expensive as people demanded more of it. So the quantity supplied increases, and the exchange rate, or the price, increases as well. Okay, so now that we've looked at the market for pounds, let's look at the market for dollars. All right, so the market for dollars, basically we got to just set it up again, supply and demand, equilibrium. And now what I want to know is, how has my traveling to England and buying more pounds going to affect the value of the US dollar? So if over here I was actually demanding more pounds, and that was causing the price to go up relative to the US dollar to the pound, over here, what is it going to affect? Which curve is it going to affect? Well, think about it. I've gone to this market, this foreign exchange market, and I've bought British pounds. So now the market has less pounds, because I have them, and they have more US dollars. Which curve is that going to affect? Well, the answer is the supply curve. So by me putting more dollars into foreign exchange market, and again, not just me, lots of people that are traveling to England, this is actually flooding the market with US dollars. And so we know that any increase in supply is going to be a shift to the right in the supply curve. Well, look what happens to the equilibrium point. We can see that the equilibrium point goes from here to here, or effectively, the price of US dollars goes down relative to the pound. So the value of the US dollar actually goes down as a result of all this travel to England. Okay, so what do we call it? Well, over here, when the US demanded more British pounds, this brought the value of the pound up. That's called an appreciation. Over here, when the US dollar, or the US consumers flooded the market with the supply of dollars, this brought the value, or the price, of the dollar down. That's called the depreciation of the US dollar. So we can see connected here, both of these graphs, a reflection, a representation of trade and how that affects the value of currency. Okay, so we'll practice more of these in class. But that's it for right now. Video 3's conclusion.